All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to break down something pretty heavy, the architecture of total state control. We're going to see how a regime can build a system designed to systematically dismantle independent thought itself. So, I want to start with a question for you, one that really gets to the heart of all this. When is a thought dangerous? I mean, when does an idea just floating around inside your own head become a genuine threat? Well, for the Nazi state, the answer was incredibly simple. Always. From the regime's perspective, any thought that wasn't perfectly aligned with its ideology, well, it wasn't just different, it was a direct existential threat. And that was the fundamental problem they were determined to solve. And their solution wasn't some random, chaotic crackdown. Not at all. It was a meticulously designed system. You could even call it an architecture, built for one single purpose: to gain total control over the minds of an entire population. This is what we call totalitarian control. It's a specific kind of rule where the state's power is absolute. It doesn't just govern in the traditional sense. It tries to seep into every single aspect of your life, public and private, from the newspaper you read to what your kids are taught in school. So how in the world do you build a system like this? Where do you even start? Well, you start by seizing control of the story, the entire narrative. The Nazi regime built their system on two foundational pillars: absolute control of all media and absolute control of all culture. First things first, they grabbed the media. This was the most immediate and powerful tool they had. I mean, think about it. If you control every newspaper, every radio broadcast, every film, you control the flow of information. You essentially get to shape reality for every single citizen. And the strategy here was, well, it was a two-pronged attack. It wasn't just about blasting out their own message. That's only half of it. It was just as important to silence everybody else. You establish one official story, and by doing that, you can eliminate dissent, you can mold public opinion, and you can turn the entire media landscape into one giant propaganda machine. But, controlling the news just isn't enough. The regime understood that a nation's real identity, its soul, is shaped by its art, its music, its literature. So that second pillar was to seize control of culture itself. The goal here was to completely redefine the purpose of art. It wasn't for personal expression anymore, no way. It was a tool that served the state. Any art they called degenerate was actively suppressed. Meanwhile, any culture that pushed the official ideology was celebrated, helping to forge the singular, state-approved national identity. Controlling the present is one thing, but to make a system like this truly last, you have to lock down the future. And that was achieved through the next two pillars: the total control of education and the total control of youth groups. The classroom, it became a primary weapon of indoctrination. The state didn't just tweak the school system, they completely overhauled it. They transformed it from a place of learning into something more like a production line for loyal subjects. To put it simply, education was weaponized. Textbooks were rewritten. Teachers were told to teach loyalty to the state above all else. And that idea of academic freedom, the very foundation of critical thinking, it was completely eliminated, gone. And the state's influence didn't just stop when the school bell rang. To make sure it was a near-total immersion, control was extended into children's free time, and they did this through mandatory state-run youth groups. These groups basically created a massive echo chamber. The ideology from the classroom was constantly hammered home through marches, games, and all sorts of group activities. This created enormous peer pressure to conform, and it actively prepared an entire generation for their future roles, as soldiers, as workers, as mothers, all in service to the state. So now we have our four pillars: media, culture, education, and youth groups. But here's the most important part. They didn't operate separately. Their real power came from how they all interlocked to form a single, inescapable machine. It was a truly comprehensive system. The media controlled the story of today, culture controlled society's values, and education and youth groups, they worked together hand in hand to secure the future by shaping minds and ensuring loyalty. Each and every pillar had a distinct, absolutely vital role to play. And together, they created this closed, self-reinforcing loop. What a person heard on the radio was reflected in the art they saw, which was reinforced by what their children learned in school and then practiced in their youth group activities. The goal was to make independent thought not just dangerous, but functionally impossible. And that brings us to a final question. After seeing how this whole architecture was built to systematically dismantle free thinking, It really forces us to ask the opposite. What are the pillars that support it? What is the true foundation of independent thought?